You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Zinget Solutions, Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Bax Max, Chiro Thin, Rhino Coaching Systems, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, The Goodman Factor, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, and Go Get Talks. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 122 of Chiro Hustle. I'm your co-host Luke Millette. Here's your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Jeffrey Cronk, and he talks a lot about the injury aspect of chiropractic and what we can do to make a better future for all patients. Stay tuned. Dr. Jeffrey, tell us your chiropractic story and what influenced you to become a chiropractor.
Sure, that was easy. I was in college and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to help people. I had a girlfriend at the time that was really academically oriented. I was athletically oriented, so I was going to school playing basketball all the time. And school didn't really matter to me. I was always really, really good at it. It was very easy. But she had a goal and I didn't really have a goal, so I decided I needed to have a goal. My uncle had been a chiropractor. He's been a chiropractor. As a matter of fact, I just spoke to him yesterday. He was years. He adjusted me when I was born, and he was a really good influence on me in the fact that he seemed to be the happiest guy I'd ever met. He was always happy, and he was always happy with what he was doing, and I never met anybody that was really happy with what they were doing, always talking about it. And he always adjusted us, so I looked up philosophy. I didn't like blood, so I didn't want to be a medical doctor. I just didn't like blood, and I didn't like the idea of drugs. So when I looked up the philosophy of chiropractic and what it, how it was healing from within and how you take a misalignment of a vertebra and improve the nervous system and the body would right itself, that resonated with me. So I decided I wanted to go to chiropractic school and become a chiropractor. And in 1985, I went to Palmer College, and in 88, I graduated.
So what would you say makes you unique in the chiropractic world? What are some things you're doing differently than everyone else?
Well, I'd say, I don't know that, one of the things I try to do, that's a great question, is align things. One of the things we have a science, and a science is the idea of organizing a body of knowledge to solve problems. Sciences are organized bodies of knowledge to solve problems. Electrical science is obviously organized to electrical engineering, organized to solve the problems with electricity. Philosophy is the reason why you organize the science in the first place, so they're inherent. They can't be separated. So in order to have a science, you have to have a philosophy. In order to have a philosophy, if you want to create more than just a philosophy, you go into a science. So our science is alignment improves function. That's our philosophy. Alignment improves function. There is not one way in anywhere you look, something that is misaligned is more functional. So I love that idea. For me, what makes me unique, I guess, in the market is I've focused for a long time now on a very specific niche, which is the niche of injuries and the niche of spinal injuries. So for the longest time, when I came out, I knew the idea of a subluxation. I knew, okay, this is what I'm doing. I came into a private practice that was seeing a very high volume of people. So I come out of school, I know that I'm going to look for misalignments. I'm going to realign the spine, and people are going to get well. That's what I was trained in. That's what I was going to do. So when I got into the clinic, I'm first hired now into a clinic. We're seeing 500 people a week, which is fine, and it's going very, very fast, much faster than college. Exams take about 5 minutes. In college, they took 3 hours. So it's a very different experience. So I looked and said, hey, we're treating these people. This was in the 80s. In the 80s, there was 100% coverage. There was no impediment to care. It was the greatest time for chiropractic, I think, in all the time that I've been involved with chiropractic, because there was no barrier to entrance for the patient. Zero. Finances is the biggest barrier. There were no barriers. So what I saw in that clinic, I liked, but I figured I could do it a better way. So I went out on my own and I starved to death for 2 years. I made $25,000 in 2 years. Try to live on $25,000 in 2 years, and I made more going to McDonald's. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you can relate. It's not a high income. So I hired a consultant, and the consultant really helped me to say, okay, this is what you need to be looking at doing, and this other stuff, what are you doing it for? And I sweat and tell them, well, this is what I was doing, and it made no sense at all, which is why I was sweating trying to defend it. And finally I said, okay, just give up. I'll do it your way. And I learned how to sell general chiropractic, and I got good at it. And I got good results with it, but I didn't get results with it all the time. And I'm kind of a predict guy. I like to be able to predict things. I like to be able to, because that's what improves your certainty. You know, if you're uncertain, it's because there's a lot of unpredictability around you. If you're highly certain, it's because you've taken that unpredictability and you've made it very predictable. So I decided after 3 years of doing great numbers and making more money than I ever thought I was going to make. I was making more money at that point than my dad, who was the president of a bank, who took the bank from $40 million to $300 million. So it was really cool. It was like, yeah, okay, just I guess maybe what every dad wants, maybe, you know, your kid is young and he's making more money than you are. I'd love for my kids to be doing that. But there was something missing in it for me because I couldn't predict. It was unpredictable. So just to bring a person in, start to adjust and just do very general adjustments, I was always kind of really good at stuff, and I thought, geez, there's not much to this. There's just not much to this, but I still didn't have the predictability of the patients that don't respond and that were not responding. So I started a search, what most doctors do, trying to get better and better and better. And in 1995, I decided that I wanted to be in the top 2% in the country that could realign a spine. Okay, this is it. I need to realign a spine. I've been trying to realign them through all the different various procedures that I was doing. And so I happened to meet a guy named Harold McCoy, who was an early chiropractor that was into muscle testing and was into outcome assessment procedures, and he was into ligament testing. And so he showed me ligaments, and I had known, you know, anybody it's in a chiropractic school, you look and there's two vertebrae and one's really misaligned. Right? It's really misaligned. Well, in school, I was saying, hey, wait, there's a whole bunch of ligaments. There's a whole bunch of ligaments that hold those. There's a whole bunch of ligaments that hold those together. Sorry about that. And don't they get damaged in the process? Right? Well, you know, when you're a student, you just kind of go through school and you're just glad that you're getting through school and you're not trying to make any waves or anything else. I never got that question answered. Harold McCoy in 1995 answered that question for me and said, of course, you can't misalign a spine without ligament damage. If you're going to treat injured patients, you should know the ligament stats. And I fell in love with it right then and there. Now, the other thing that happened was that he introduced me to Berle Pettibon. And from there, I learned how to realign a spine. And so it got very, very neat in the fact that you could take, I understood that in order to realign a spine, you had to also understand the ligaments. So the ligaments became kind of important. They're kind of an important structure in the spine. And if you're going to be, in my world, if you're going to treat spinal injuries, you should know a lot about that particular structure because it's key to what you're addressing when you're addressing injury patients. That makes sense?
Oh, for sure. And one of the things I wanted to touch on with you about the work that you've done is you've also got a law degree too, right?
I did. I got a law degree in 2013, and I got the degree because I wanted to understand from a legal perspective. I wanted to understand a lawyer's mindset because, quite frankly, I couldn't understand when I was in private practice. I could not understand the lawyer's mindset because the lawyer did not know about the injuries they were representing. So if you go into a personal injury lawyer today, 95% of them have no idea about the injuries that they're representing. And it never made any sense to me. Okay, why in the world would an attorney, it'd be like if you had a seatbelt litigation attorney that says, hey, your seatbelt failed. They know everything there was to know about the mechanics of the seatbelt. But the general attorney today representing an injured patient doesn't know anything, rarely nothing, about the injuries that they represent. That didn't make any sense to me, so I wanted to try to understand their mindset from a legal point of view. How are they trained? How are they taught? And what I learned was pretty close to chiropractic. You're taught the basics of law in law school, and then from there you go out and you get on-the-job training through the specialization of the places that you work.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me because a lot of chiropractors don't have that extra degree in order to understand the direction of where the profession can go when it comes to building a foundation for explanation of why things are done the way they are and being able to build a clean case.
That's right. And the thing is that the beautiful thing about all of this information is that it makes it very simple. Once you understand something, usually something that's complicated is only complicated because you don't understand it. Once you understand it, it's usually you've identified just how simple it is. It looks complex. Once you understand it, it becomes quite simple. And most of this stuff, aside from Latin language, is pretty simple. You know, explanations in Latin language are a little difficult, and that still law presents that way. But the basis of what's needed in an injury space is pretty easy. It's very logical. And the thing is, the other thing I'd say to that is once you understand it, see, it took me a while. So you get into the injury market, and at first you'd say, oh, the insurance companies are against me. Defense attorneys are against me. It's an adversarial thing. IME doctors, utilization reviews, they're cutting off my care, they're doing this, they're doing that. You fight. And I used to fight. And one day I had this amazing cognition, was like, wait a second, they're paying for my houses, they're paying for my rental units, they're paying for my kids, they're paying for everything. So why am I antagonistic toward the insurer when essentially the insurer wants the same thing I want? I want to take a patient in, I want to diagnose them accurately. It's key to getting a great result with them. I want to treat them, I want them to come out the other end without any pain whatsoever and no negative influence on their activities of daily living or their work at all. And I want to do that as quickly as I can. I was like, that's the same thing the insurer wants. So why am I fighting? They pay me, and we have the same desires. So at that moment, it shifted for me. I don't fight. I don't teach doctors how to fight. You don't have to fight. All you have to do is be very objective and present what the consensus says. And there's so much consensus when it comes to injury work that it becomes really easy. It's not a hard practice. And it's still, like I mentioned in the 80s, you're not dealing with patient finances. You know, there's no impediment to the patient.
So let me ask you a question. It's a little off script here, but what was it like?
Go ahead.
What was it like to get to know and work for Berle Pettibon? That name's a big name in the chiropractic world. What was it like to be around him?
Amazing. I have story after story because I kind of embedded with him once he became my mentor. And it kind of, when it was nice because when we became mentors, I didn't look at him like, I looked at him like, hey, he's gone down this line and he's studied a lot of stuff I've never studied. So I spent a lot of time in his garage / tinker place that he invented stuff, his inventor garage in Gig Harbor. And we would have discussion after discussion. And it was interesting because he would push me to places that I couldn't answer the question. And I'd push him to places where he couldn't answer the question. And he would always say, well, you're kind of an eccentric SOB. And I'm like, oh my God, you're calling me eccentric? Berle Pettibon was probably the smartest chiropractor I've ever met. He was an amazing guy. And he was really fun. He taught me a lot. My first phone call to him is, hey, I heard you could align spines. What's your percentage of correction? No hesitation.
So let me ask you a question. I know that we had a phone call about, I don't know, almost like 2 months ago now. What was your initial takeaway from that?
For what? From what?
Phone call.
The initial takeaway from the phone call?
Yeah.
Just that you were a guy who was creating podcasts and creating a market and wanting to create change and improve chiropractic, and I was too. So you and I were dialoguing to see if that was a match somehow.
Yeah, it was an awesome experience for me because I got a chance to get really heady with you and talk to you about like where the puck's going type of conversation when it comes to like global impact of chiropractic and what's happening at the schools on a fundamental level, what's happening in state associations, we journeyed down some trails, man.
We did. That's what it's nice though when you get with like people who have like interests, are trying to make discussions to figure out, okay, how do we make this better? How do we improve it? Before the show we were talking, chiropractic is 0.3% of the total healthcare market. I'm a guy that thinks like that and goes, wow, 0.3%, if we went to 0.6%, we just doubled the market, right? So we're very small, and we need a chiropractor, actually. The profession needs a chiropractor. And Jim, Luke, maybe that's you, maybe that's both of you, right? Through what you're doing, you're the chiropractors, because alignment improves function. So the more we align, the more functional we become in the market. I'm an injury guy, and I say, wow, as far as procedures go, it's very easy to align procedures. If you think about it like a dentist, you both can go into any dentist in the country with a cavity. You're going to get x-ray, they're going to pick, they're going to drill, and they're going to fill, right? It's very easy. Get standard everywhere. Injuries are like that too. They can be. There's very specific procedures that you do for injuries, like dentistry, that every doctor should be doing when you're talking about an injury. And so that's, to me, is an area where it's the easiest to align the procedures. Art is always going to stay the same. You could have an orthopedic surgeon that says, hey, you broke your femur in 4 places. We need 4 screws and a plate. Another one says, no, I need wire. Wire's better. That's the art, right? There's always going to be an art. But the science is in the procedures. And like, okay, and those can be standardized. And I tell you what, dentistry's done really well. You look at dentists, they're doing very well, but they standardize their procedures pretty much. We need to do that. And the easiest place to do that in my world is in the injury market.
Well, it's public perception too, and that's reality. And that's what chiropractic needs to, join forces with each other more rather than disband on their own. And I talk to people all the time about this, Dr. Jeffrey, as I tell people, chiropractors are really good at creating their own islands, and they're really good at creating campaigns that support their island. But when it comes to supporting the larger body of work of chiropractic, most people are in survival mode, and they wouldn't know what it's like to support another chiropractor because there's no payoff in that. Right. Well, there is and there isn't. I mean, there is. Obviously, what you're saying is it'd be great if, hey, my patient didn't do well. I mean, in my practice, I used to have a chiropractor that I referred to if they didn't do well under my care, because there was a different type of care that she produced that I had. There was another provider actually that had a completely different than her or I, right? So, it'd be nice, yes, if the world was just like medicine. Well, it's so funny. I remember when patients would say to me, well, I tried a chiropractor once and it didn't work. And say, well, have you ever tried medical doctor and didn't have it work? Yeah. You still going to medicine? Yeah. Okay. Well, why'd you quit chiropractic? Because it didn't work once. There's a lot of chiropractors. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Why are we born into medical care and we die under medical care? Why aren't we born into chiropractic care and die under chiropractic care? Those are things that make a lot of sense to me. When you're very familiar with AMI. I can't think of the doctor's name right now. He was the chiropractor doctor of the year in 2000. He showed the model in insurance that chiropractic wellness was highly cost effective. I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. Anyway. It actually makes people make more money once they're under care, actually.
Yeah, once I understood what I was doing, obviously you attract more people to you because they need your help, and then they trust you, and you naturally make more. If you naturally make more money. I mean, the more you contribute to your local area, and the more you contribute to each person. Like I used to look at people, and even under injury care, let's say a woman comes in, like we were talking about earlier, and she's in an auto accident, now she's got migraine headaches, or she's got bad headaches, she's got bad neck pain, she got 3 kids, married, husband, and she works part-time to support the family. Well, when you're treating that, you're not treating just her, you're treating those 3 kids, the husband, and a whole lot of other people. And so that's, and then when you get into injury work and you say, well, 50% of these patients are never going to fully recover, that's why I got into it. I wanted the high risk person. I thought it was good enough that should be me that should be treating that person. Because if I was going to have a family member go to somebody, I would want them to go to somebody like me. That's what I evolved into. I didn't start there. That's what I evolved into.
So how would the chiropractic profession change if more doctors started following your standard procedures?
Well, tell you what, that's a really good question, because what I teach the doctors is to follow the standard procedures that chiropractic has already developed. So if we would follow the standard procedures that we've already developed, so I could give you like an x-ray guideline. The ICA has a beautiful x-ray guideline. It solves the problems of chronic pain identification. So when you're trying to find something that's causing the chronic pain, that set of guidelines actually solves it. It's in one page. It's in 5 sentences, right? Now, I teach a lot. So if I go out and say, well, how many of you do this? It's pretty much none, right? Well, why did all these guys work forever, weekends, setting up these? You got the Dan Murphys, you got the Harrisons, you got all these guys, the Joe Betts, all these people giving their weekends, giving their life to create these guidelines. We don't use them. So all I do is just show them and reintroduce them to their guidelines, and then show them how you standardly use them. And then if you do standardly use them, here's the results you get with them. So it's not really mine. It's just, okay, here they are. Yes, I spent a lot of time. Anytime you spend a lot of time with something, you get very involved with all the problems that are associated with it, and you have to solve those problems, right? You get involved with podcasting at first and all the equipment and all the things. And after you podcast, this will be 122 shows, or you get to your 1,000th show, you could, if I'm going to sign up for somebody that wants to teach me about podcasting, I'm going to come to you guys because you guys have already figured out technical issues with connectivity, all the issues that come with that thing you figured out. And I want to be able to get your information, your 2-day program for your 20 years of experience. And that's what I got to the point where that's what I started when you said, hey, how was your introduction to Berle Pettibon? That's when I changed in my life and said, look, you hear a lot of things, right? And you go, oh, that sounds good. But what I decided I wanted to get to was the people that were actually doing it, not the people that had learned from them and who had learned from him and now was teaching that guy's work three people up. I wanted to learn right from the source if I could find it. So that's the difference.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Close for Chiro, Zinget Solutions, Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Max, ChiroThin, Rhino Coaching Systems, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, The Goodman Factor, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, and Go Get Talks. Let's hustle.
So do you have any favorite mantras or motivational quotes or words of wisdom that you kind of keep close to your mind every day?
No, I'm going to answer that question. No, I think what I keep in mind every day is, okay, how can I improve and how can I help somebody else improve? And obviously, if you're in business, it's just like you guys are spending your life traveling around the country trying to improve things. And every day, I don't know if you have a mantra or a particular thing that you say. I don't have a particular thing I say. I just know that it's what I want to do. And, and some people may have a sentence or two or an affirmation or something that they use. I don't use anything like that. Maybe I should. Maybe that'll be the next thing for me. But currently, I don't. All I know is alignment. When I think of chiropractic, I remember I sat with Virgil Strang. He was my philosophy instructor. He was a president of Palmer College. This guy took 4 days to tell a 10-minute story. Okay, it took forever. And he would stand up there and I'd think, wow, this is okay, get to the point. And after all the philosophy, I realized, geez, I could say it in 3 words. Alignment improves function. Alignment improves function. That's the basic. I don't think anybody can get it to 2 words, and I'm not sure you can get it to 1 word. You know what I mean? And the cool part about that is that foundation itself is the foundation of injury work. It's the foundation of wellness work. It's the foundation of chronic pain work. It's the foundation of our profession. And we should be very proud of it and asserting it.
Well, alignment also improves mobility.
Everything.
And I think that a lot of times I was talking to a guy yesterday about the propensity for fall victims and how as people get older that they are less mobile, there's less alignment and greater propensity for falling.
Right.
And then I was also talking to him about another topic that, what's happening in the UK especially is the disability ranges are typically on basically brain dead. People get Alzheimer's, they get dementia, and those are the big problems within, at least in the UK, that I was talking to him about. And when we think about the mobility and the alignment, these things are direct correlation to the noggin. And if we have the noggin on straight and the brain is flowing the way it's supposed to, and the spine has less subluxation prevalent, then the body heals and the brain stays healthy. But I do think that I don't know, I'm not a scientist or anything, but there's the receptors that are sending signals down as we talk about the trillion billion cells inside the body. And when the body is not in a state of homeostasis, it's in a state of fight or flight. And when people aren't taking care of their spine properly and staying in alignment, then we're disorganized. So why wouldn't it make sense that if people are organized, that they have healthier brain quality as they age?
Totally. Just healthier body quality. And there's a lot to that. And of course, you and I would agree that if our science went into more wellness science, which it should, that this place would be a lot better. I mean, disease care is not great care. It's horrible. It's super expensive. I mean, we shouldn't be spending 20% of our gross domestic product on healthcare. We should solve the healthcare reasons that are actually causing that.
And I think we have the brain trust to do that. I really think that we have the smartest people in the world that want to see their friends and family healthy long term. And
yeah, totally.
I really think that we do have the brightest minds of our era that can make this happen. And that's why I love chiropractors, because I found myself in a group of healers. And when you can heal people, you don't have to depend on sick care.
Totally. The only thing I would add to that, Jim, is that if you're a group, right? So let's take a group called chiropractic. Generally, a group has a leader or leaders, hopefully at least a leader, right? And that leader sets the goal for the group for the future. It's a target. You can think of JFK going, hey, we want to go to the moon. So everybody organized and said, I don't care. Yeah, I don't even like you, but now I like you because we're all unified and we're going to the moon. Right? Sometimes it's a positive thing. Sometimes it's, oh my God, they knocked down buildings in 9/11. We're all together because we need to come together as a group and protect each other. So we can have it from a positive or a negative. We have to set a goal for the group. We got to have a group goal maker that sets the future goal of this group. What is this group as a group? Doesn't matter what you're doing individually, those are all great. But what are we as a group going to do? And how are we going to get there? And what I would love to see is more, this is the future of, we could take over. In spinal injury care, the #1 diagnosis in the market today is non-specific mechanical low back pain or mechanical neck pain. In the market today, the top experts openly admit that 90% of the spinal injuries do not have a pathoanatomic origin identified. Now that'd be like when a body injures, it deranges. So if you had a dog, if either one of you had a dog and the dog bit you, it deranges tissue, right? Now think about this. If you went into that dog expert, for the doctor that treats dog bites, and the doctor said, well, and you said, well, how do you determine the severity and location of a dog bite? And they didn't know, because they didn't know what the dog bite looked like. You'd think that was odd as all get out, right? In the spine market, the majority of providers in the market, and unfortunately this also carries over into our profession, doesn't know what the typical derangements look like. And they're very easy to identify. So those identified derangements come right out of our science. So we are either going to lead in that science, or we're going to be led with somebody using that science to lead the market. I would like to see it be the profession itself.
Well, something that's a huge eye opener for me is when I was like starting up in my chiropractic career almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I would go to like the professional networking groups, okay? And the doc had me go there and represent the office as like the guy that showed up to BNI, the guy that showed up to chamber meetings.
Yeah.
So I got my 20 minutes of fame like once a quarter, where I got a chance to do a 20-minute talk to the group. So what I would do is I'd find abscessed teeth, and I would blow those pictures up, and I'd ask the person what this looks like. And they would be like, well, it looks like somebody's gums are inflamed. It looks like the tissue's rotten. It looks like there's dysfunction or some type of swelling or some type of, discomfort. And I go, well,
I don't want it.
I said, this is the same tissue matter that's in your spinal column. So when you have a subluxation in your spine, this is exactly what it looks like, but we can't see under your skin. So what's happening is there's adhesions and there's dysfunction and there's inflammation in that spinal joint that looks just like this gum.
That's right.
And I started explaining it to them like that. And then they started to understand that they wanted to come in and get checked, because I said that we can't see your subluxations until we check you.
Right.
And that hits home.
Totally hits home. It totally hits home. But let's take just as an alignment principle on this for the profession. If we take the word subluxation, right, it's under attack. Mm-hmm. Only under attack because it's not codified, and this is the definition. Now you can look at guidelines, and guidelines have the same definition for 115, 120 years now, which is misaligned vertebra that causes nerve interference. Not simply misaligned vertebra. Everyone's got misaligned vertebra. There's not a person on the planet that doesn't have misaligned vertebra. When a misaligned vertebra causes nerve interference, that's when we call it a subluxation. Mm-hmm. When we remove it, we just remove the expression and it's removed, even if it's not realigned. I'm an x-ray guy, right? So if you go after the adjustment, I did it for years, and you look, you can overlay the x-rays, not a millimeter, not a bit of difference in the alignment that you can tell, right? So if you're trying to figure it out from that point, but it's in my world, that's the same. So there's two terms. There's subluxation, and then there's a medical term called spinal instability. They're the same term. They mean exactly the same thing. In medicine, we say if a spine has too much motion or it's malaligned and it causes a motor, sensory, or a pain problem, it's called a spinal instability. In chiropractic, that same thing is called a spinal subluxation. Now, the reason why I bring it up on this show, and I said, hey, look, subluxations are caused by trauma. The misalignments of the spine are caused by trauma, right? So it's key. Trauma understanding to me still is key. It's a key foundational principle of chiropractic. And that's why I love the work so much. That's why I love the injury work so much.
So where do you see chiropractic heading in the next 20 years or so?
Exactly where it wants to go. Where does it want to go? We have to just exactly what we said before. Exactly. That's a great response. Right. There's a smile. Well, I don't know. We don't know. We don't know because we're not setting a goal. You can't get anywhere unless you set a goal.
So let's turn the page back. This is an unscripted question, but what do you think is the most important thing that has happened to chiropractic over the past decade?
What's the most important thing that's happened to chiropractic over the last decade? I would say the most important thing, and this will be a little bit controversial, and as an injury guy, I'll take a risk on it, but we've watered down and allowed our terminology to get watered down. So again, if I say spinal subluxation, it's the same as a spinal instability. In my world, we talk about spinal instabilities when we're going into medical doctors. I can go in and explain just with a little tiny shift of language, whether I'm talking to a hospital administrator, a neurosurgeon, an orthopedist, a chiropractor, a physical therapist. The language actually resonates no matter where I go when I took the term spinal instability. It's the same thing as a spinal subluxation. It's just that if I use that term and they go out and talk to one doctor, I teach seminars, you raise your hand, what does a spinal subluxation mean? That's like asking a dental group, what's the definition of a cavity? Right? Everyone in the room should be able to Chinese school and give it a mantra, oh, this is what it is. It's tooth decay of a tooth, right? What's the spinal subluxation? Misalignment of the spine that causes nerve interference.
So why do you feel that the study of ligaments are so important to the chiropractic profession?
Because you can't misalign a spine without damaging the ligaments. Think about it. It's the casing that holds it in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
The casing that holds it in alignment is intact. It stays in alignment. Now, the other thing that's really kind of interesting about it is the ligaments don't actually support, they're very weak. They're not very strong. Right? So if right now you look like a big guy, Jim, if you're at the gym and you put a 10-pound weight on your chest, you have 100 pounds of excessive pressure in your lower back. If you take that same 10 pounds and you put it out 25 inches from your chest, you have 250 pounds per square inch in your lower back. And that's going to blow every ligament in your back. But why don't they blow? Well, they don't blow because it's a functional unit and the muscles support it. Get their communication directly from the ligament, receptors. So your body makes instantaneous adjustments based on the communication system in the ligament. Now we also have the nervous system, and that's important, but that ligament system is really important. It's not the be-all, end-all, but it's a nice foundation to understand when you want to understand misalignment of the spine, because you really can't misalign them without it.
So what are some of your key marketing strategies? How do you spread this information out to other doctors?
I look for influential guys like you who are podcasting to come on your podcast shows. And we actually have a website, SmartInjuryDoctor.com. I'm on 6 or 7 different social media sites now. We're starting to push information out all the time. I have my own podcast, which I'd love to have one of you guys on my podcast. We reverse it out. I'm starting to get a voice because one of the things that's interesting is to see I'm a little bit morbid to you guys, but when I was a doctor, I used to sit and I'd read the newspaper at lunch and I'd read the obituaries, right? And it was like, oh, okay, Bill Smith, he died at 85. He liked to go to the Rotary Club and play cards on Friday night. I'm thinking, wow, I hope at the end of my life, somebody doesn't say, okay, you like to play cards. Not that that's a bad life or anything else. You could be a great person and have that, but I wanted more. And so my emphasis now is gaining a much larger voice in the injury market, because the market is very ready for results-based care and really trying to differentiate out good providers from bad providers. I'm a person that says not every injury patient should go to just any chiropractor. I mean, we have chiropractic groups like The Joint. They don't treat injury patients. So there's a reason for that. So, again, when a person has a 50% chance of not fully recovering, you need the top people in that particular situation. If I'm in an emergency room and I've got a shattered spine, if I don't want the middle of the bell curve guy or the end of the bell curve guy trying to save my life. I'd prefer to have the front of the bell curve guy, if possible, or gal, trying to save my life. And that's how I feel about it.
So let's change gears a little bit and talk about you personally. What are some books that you're in the middle of reading? What other podcasts do you listen to? What are some of your hobbies?
Yep. So the thing that I'm right in the middle of reading right now, I just held up a book. It was an old 1915 chiropractic book on technique. I just finished Mazion's book that he wrote in 1985. I kind of like the old chiropractic books because what happens for me is I look and say, wow, they were saying this stuff 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And as a matter of fact, I think we kind of derailed a bit. And we stopped going with some of our great understanding of what it was that we were doing. So believe it or not, I like to read some old chiropractic books. Those are things that I like to read. I love marketing books because right now we're trying to understand how to message and things like that. So the last book I read on marketing was Russell Brunson's .com Secrets, I think. And then when I'm not working, which is a lot, I've been one of those guys that I like what I do. So I do it a lot. So I work a lot. Some could call me a workaholic, but I pretty much like what I do. So it's fun. But I boat, walk a dog. I've a grandson on the way, which about 2 years ago I was like, no, wait, no one's calling me grandpa yet. Now I can't wait. Our granddaughter, I'm sorry. I have some grandchildren through my wife. So it's, that's what I like spending time doing.
That's cool. Yeah, it's always endearing to me to hear the last questions of our interviews because we get a chance to really share with our audience who the person that we're shining a spotlight on really is, like what interests and who are they. And I think that it's a nice way for people to talk about what they're interested in. I think, knowing what you read is definitely a part of who you are. It's cool to hear that you're bridging into the marketing arena and reading Russell Brunson, because I do think that if you were to ask me like the pinnacle of like marketing right now, Brunson's in the lead. And he's definitely somebody that everybody should pay attention to because he's definitely a trendsetter. And right now he is somebody that's having a massive influence, not only on our market, but every darn market out there. He basically reinvented the websites.
Oh, totally. I mean, he's got a great story, and just the fact of teaching through storytelling is helping me a lot. When I'm doing seminars or whatnot, you can get very dry, drone on with this, some of this stuff is technical. So it's kind of nice to hear a story about, okay, well, how did you figure this out in the first place? How did you arrive at this in the first place?
It's the old story. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right. Yeah, totally.
And if you can tell them a story about how you care about things, then they'll pay attention to the things that matter.
Yeah, and I don't care what it is, even in private practice. I think the more that you come out, and again, this is kind of, for me, this is certainty. When your certainty improves, your personality comes out because you don't have to be something that you're not anymore. You're just being who you are. And I don't care who it is, when you're being who you are, it's attractive.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And so, and it took me a long time to learn that, though. You guys probably already have that now. It took me a while to learn that.
So as we get on to the end of the interview with you today, is there anything that we didn't ask you that you'd like to share with our audience today? No,
I enjoyed it. No. I mean, could I talk? I could talk for 12, 20 hours on injury stuff, but no, just as a nice podcast of okay, here's some information and here's a viewpoint on some things. No, it's perfect. Perfect, guys.
All right, Jeffrey, thank you so much for being our guest today. We had fun on this one, and Jim and I just want you to enjoy the rest of your day, okay?
Thank you. Will do, guys, and thank you very much. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeffrey.
All right, guys.
All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.